A shakeup at the top of the Trump campaign and Hillary Clinton's tax returns. Welcome to the Mike Broomhead Show.
Well, I got a message, I got a song. Can I get a witness? Tell me what's going on. I show the people.
Hey, thanks for being here this week. We've got a great interview with you. Someone named Gordon James, who was right here in Phoenix, Arizona, from Phoenix, has been involved in some of the most amazing things in recent American and world history. A great interview coming up with him. But we start every week off with something we call the sweep. Big shakeup in the Trump campaign this week as he has promoted somebody from within the campaign. Kellyanne Conway becomes campaign manager. A man named Steve Bannon, who was one of the co-founders of Breitbart, joins the campaign as chief executive. So now these two people are going to be in charge, and Bannon is kind of known in the industry or in American politics as an activist, but kind of a street fighter when it comes to getting things done. So it looks as if Donald Trump has taken the gloves off. He's far behind in a lot of the polls, if you believe the polls, and he's got some work to do. That's what he says he's going to do. Now, Roger Ailes is being reported, former head of Fox, got ousted as an advisor to the Trump campaign on the debates and how he handles those debates. We'll see if that's true or not. There were some denials by the campaign. We'll see moving forward if that helps Donald Trump. On the other side, Hillary Clinton released her tax return. She earned just over $10 million, her and her husband Bill, just over $10 million last year. She's just like us. And she earned over $10 million bucks. They donated $1,042,000 to charity last year. Nice of them, right? $1 million of it went to the Clinton Foundation for Families, so they donated it to their own charity that they have sole control over. The other $42,000 went to a golf tournament that helps families. They donated $42,000. That foundation turned around after they got $42,000 from the Clintons and donated $700,000 to the Clinton Foundation. So you can make of that what you wish. Hillary Clinton earns over $10 million along with her husband. Most of it, I would say almost all of it, from speaking fees, from public speaking fees. And they donate almost 10% to charity, but it all went to their charity. So there you have it. I thought we'd point out what they were doing with their tax returns. Let's look at something that's happened locally. Chase Field, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and Maricopa County have been at odds. We talked the other week about this. We invited one of the members of the County Board of Supervisors on to talk about this, where Maricopa County, who was responsible for maintenance at the facility, said they are not going to shell out over $100 million in what they called cosmetic repairs. The Diamondbacks want suite remodels, they want technological upgrades, they want a new scoreboard, and they say that's part of the county's responsibility. The county said, no, it's not. Well, all of a sudden we found out this week that a private investment company from the East Coast said they would pay $60 million for the facility. They keep the Diamondbacks in the facility through 2028. Hang on a minute. That facility, less than 20 or a little over 20 years ago, cost $350+ million to build. In today's dollars, it would be almost $500 million to build this facility. They're in negotiations for $60 million. I would buy it for $60 million if it's worth $400 million. I could find people to give me the money for that. Is this deal going through? And it's your tax dollars that built that stadium. Do you want to sell it for $60 million? Lori Roberts at AZ Central asked the question, does this violate the gifts clause because they're selling something basically for nothing? Another big story that's going to affect a lot of people in Arizona is the major insurance carrier Aetna is withdrawing from Obamacare. It pulled out of almost all of the states, with the exception of 5 states. They are pulling out of the Obamacare exchanges. Arizona is one of those states they're pulling out of, which means there's going to be one less choice, a business decision because of all the money they're losing. They have already predicted a 64% increase in premiums for people that are getting the Obamacare exchange policies. Well, it's going to be even more than that when you have smaller and smaller groups of people sharing the risk. You are having people sign up for the system who need the help. So they are draining the system, not adding to the system. That's been the issue. Aetna pulling out. So if you are on Obamacare exchanges here in Arizona, it's going to be tougher for you to find a way to get coverage with one of these other houses. So it's going to be very, very difficult. One last thing, traffic tickets since 2008 are down 35%. 35% decrease in traffic tickets being issued in the state of Arizona. I've always said they are a revenue generator. This is proof. All of the state programs that are having to be diminished because of this lowering of revenue from the tickets. So if you really wanted to make people drive slower, why not patrol the streets? Why would you have a police officer hiding behind a barricade or in an underpass to catch speeders with a radar gun? If you're driving up and down those freeways or those surface streets, people are going to drive slower because they're not going to pass a police officer. Just my 2 cents on that one. Coming up in just a moment, my interview with Gordon C. James. You're going to love Gordon and the stories that he has to tell about recent American history and American politics in general. And if you're a social media user, find us on all the platforms. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be back. You never know who lives in your community, who you're going to meet, and someone that I've had the great pleasure of getting to know is Gordon James from Gordon C. James Public Relations. And your business here in Phoenix, Arizona, and you have an office in D.C., but you have done some of the most interesting things and been a part of such recent American history. I wanted to get your perspective on some things. Let's start with your time working with George H.W. Bush and then the Reagan years and move forward. Tell us a little bit about your time with him.
So I was blessed, and I was living in Des Moines, Iowa, of all places. I grew up here in Phoenix, but I was living in Des Moines, Iowa, and I was running a real estate management company, and I got a call from my commanding officer in the National Guard, my former commanding officer, and he said, I've got a guy that's running for president of the United States, and we need some office space in Des Moines for the caucuses. And I said, well, who is it? He says, it's George Bush. And I said, who the heck is that? He said, well, you know who he is. He's head of the party and all this. And I went, oh, okay, well, I showed him. Rented them in the space, and about 6 months later, the president came to open up the office. And I met him for the first time, and that was the end of me. I was hooked from there on, and I've been with them ever since 1978. And I didn't go to work full-time for them until 1986, but once I got started on that, then I ended up at the White House after he was elected president, and I stayed there for 2 years. And then we opened our company in 1990, December of 1990. So it's been 25 years since we've had Gordon C. James Public Relations. And you've worked with conventions, with the Republican conventions, and what's that like? Just for us, for Cleveland, when I was in Cleveland, what an enormous setup that must have been, but how well run it was. It's got to be a logistical nightmare with what was going on. There's so, Michael, I've been at, I can't tell you how many conventions I've been blessed to be involved in, and every city is different and handles it differently, but this one was especially well run. And the way, I mean, when the Kansas City State Patrolmen are out playing ping pong with the demonstrators, you know things are kind of relaxed. And, yeah. But well, aren't we blessed that both conventions came off without a hitch? Right. The Olympics are basically coming off without a hitch, and everyone has been so worried about some sort of problem, you know, from some terrorist something, but we've got a couple more days of the Olympics, and aren't we blessed? But Cleveland went very, very well. Our job is to run the pre-week, which is the platform committee and the rules committee, and to set that up for the delegates that are part of that. There's 122 delegates that come in for the platform committee, and then they switch over, and another 122 delegates come in for the rules committee. So we build an Oprah Winfrey studio for them, and you know, broadcast it live. Yeah. It's a big TV studio where they run their business. And it's always very interesting. I love being there and being a part of it and seeing it play out in the different personalities. One of the most amazing things in your office, you've got pictures of when the provisional government, when we turned the government over to the Iraqi people after the war was basically over, when we were turning this government over to the Iraqi people. And seeing you there in that room, what is that like to watch something like that happen? So I was blessed again. Karl Rove asked us if we'd go over in January of 2004, if we'd go to Baghdad and if we'd help the Prime Minister and to help Ambassador Brimmer with his work there. And we had planned through a series of events to turn the government over on July 1st of 2004. It was run by the Coalition Provisional Authority, and we had planned to turn it over on July 1st. Well, all the bad guys knew that we were going to do it July 1st, so we moved it up a day. And we did the event in Prime Minister Alawi's office. We called it the Little White House. It was a small little office building outside the convention center. And we probably had 2,000 or 3,000 media from around the world showed up. I don't know how they got all their satellite trucks in there, but it was just covered. And obviously, we couldn't have them all come into the Prime Minister's office. So we set up a pool center, or to a filing center in the convention center, and then we had a pool coverage in his office. And it was fantastic. We had the letter written in English, in Arabic, and in Kurdish, and we handed it over. Ambassador Bremer gave it to Prime Minister Alawi and said, "Here's your country back." And then that afternoon, we didn't, the Iraqis had never sworn in a prime minister. They didn't know how to do it, so we just did it like we do it in the United States. We had a Quran and we wrote a little 23-word, "I promise to do my best" deal, and he read it, and
it's just a part of world history.
it was.
That
It was a great day.
you've been a part of, and to see those pictures on your wall, it must have been fascinating. I wanted to get a little background because I'm a lot newer than you are in American politics. I want to talk to you about where we are today in American politics, how we got to where we are, and what you think is going to happen next, because you've got a lot more experience in this than I do.
I think there were 16, 17 Republican candidates. Well, there was just one Democrat. I think Secretary Clinton was going to be the nominee no matter what. I think that there were a lot of great ideas that came out. I think that the people that selected the candidates, the Republican candidate, were angry. They were disillusioned by what they felt the Obama administration had done, and all politicians really. I mean, Congress has a 17% approval rating. It's zero basically, and someone like Mr. Trump came along, and he was very vocal, and he was saying the same things that they seemed to, not what I say around my dinner table, but what they seemed to be saying around their dinner table. And lo and behold, he became the nominee. Now here we are, and this is totally different than normal operating procedure. I mean, both President 41 and President 43, George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush, they were very traditional candidates. They'd come up the ranks. They'd been governor, or they'd been, they'd run for other offices. Well, Mr. Trump has not run for ever anything.
Well, let's do this. I want to take a quick break, and I want to ask you about what you see is happening now in American politics with the two candidates we have. We'll be back here in a minute with Gordon C. James, and I'll get some insight from someone who knows a lot more about this than I do, so don't go away. All right, thanks for being with us. Gordon James is joining me. We're talking American politics, kind of where we are. You mentioned earlier that being a part of some of these things is a big honor. For me to be in Tampa at the convention, that was my first convention, to when they nominated Mitt Romney, and then being in Cleveland when they nominated Donald Trump, it's still a great thing to see the American government work the way it does. Whether you agree with the candidate or not, the process is kind of an honor to be a part of. But when you look now at the players, we're down to two candidates. We've got Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and it seems to be everyone in the country is discussing voting for the lesser of two evils. No one really likes either candidate. How do we get to a point in an election where neither candidate is really liked by the people of the country?
Well, I'm not sure that's exactly true. I think that both Mr. Trump and Secretary Clinton both have their followings, and very strong followings, and people that have a lot of respect for both of them. Aren't we lucky that we live in the United States of America, though? No matter what happens, we're going to survive. I mean, we're a country where individuals are the most important part. I mean, self-will is the whole premise of our livelihood and our way of life. But I would say that this is going to be a very interesting. We have 81 days left to go, something like that. And I think that the Trump camp is going to have to really get their people to turn out. And I think Mrs. Clinton Secretary Clinton has a leg up, because I think the Bernie Sanders people they were legion in this. And I think 75 to 80% of them are going to vote. They're going to show up, and they're going to vote for Secretary Clinton. So the Trump people have really got their work cut out for them on turnout. And then, of course, remember, this isn't 2000. President Bush did not win the popular vote. He won the Electoral College vote. So you have to win those key states. And right now, Secretary Clinton is massively ahead on the Electoral College vote. So the Trump strategy has got to be Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania. Those are maybe the three that are possible. And he can't lose Arizona, Utah, Indiana. He's with Governor Pence. He's in good shape there. Should be in good shape. The polls show him up 11, 12 points there. Should be all right there. But you can't just win Indiana and Mississippi. He's in good shape there. In some of the southern states. But there's not enough electoral college votes in those states to put you over the top. And so they've really got their work cut out for them. He may indeed win the popular vote and still lose the election.
So if you were advising the Trump campaign, because you've advised a lot of people, what strategy would you have them employ?
Yeah, I think they're back to square one. I think that I think they should just do what they did to win the primary. And I know that Paul Manafort tried to change the teleprompter thing and to change the messaging and to get him more on track, but that didn't get him to where he is. So just let him go. Let him do his thing. And it'll either work or it won't work. Mr. Trump is Mr. Trump.
Right.
And I think that he's hired, I don't remember the man's name, but he's hired a very sharp-elbowed guy.
Bannon from Breitbart.
Right. And this guy has got a reputation of being a street fighter, and that's probably going to be the saving grace at this standpoint.
How do you think he does in the debates against Secretary Clinton?
Oh, this could be fascinating. Now remember, let's take one debate. Let's say that the subject matter is foreign affairs. She traveled to 100+ countries as Secretary of State. She knows these guys by first name,
right,
and knows their issues and whatnot. Mr. Trump, on the other side of the coin, has not. And when he did travel abroad, he was meeting with business people, not government people. This could be very interesting. It'd be very tough for him, I would think. And she has to be careful not to, in some ways, make him look like he really has no idea. Even though he may have some idea, she can't upstage him so much that she hurts herself. That would be my advice to her. Just be careful.
Right.
And of course, she's been a senator, and so she knows how that part of the third leg of the government works. He doesn't.
Right.
Necessarily. He's been working with lobbyists that have influenced the process, but he's not directly been in government. So when it comes to domestic affairs and whatnot, she's going to have a leg up too. So he's got to be well schooled. But I would say, be Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Don't try to be someone you're not, because it comes off like, hey, what's he trying to do here?
Right.
And so just be yourself. And when we do media training at our company, I tell our trainees, I say, the best you is you. And that's what I would tell Donald Trump. The best you is you.
I want to say thank you, because it's been a pleasure to get to know you. And the more I learn about the things you've been experiencing, I just wanted to kind of bring it to people to let them know that here in Phoenix is someone that's been a part of a lot of recent world history. And you've done some great things. So I appreciate you coming by and sharing some stories.
Thank you, Michael.
We'll be back. Welcome back. This is one of my favorite parts of the program. We call it From Arizona for America. It's our way to thank and congratulate the men and women who have recently graduated from boot camp and are now serving in our country's military. So if you would this week, join me in honoring Airman Porter Elliott from Tanque Verde High School in Tucson, Airman James Googe from Lake Havasu High School in Lake Havasu City, and Airman First Class Stephen Janis from Sandra Day O'Connor High School in Phoenix. Now, for a full list of more of our friends and neighbors that are from Arizona for America, you can go to the Mike Broomhead page at AZTV.com. We'll be back in a minute with Broomhead's Best and #this. It's time for my favorite part of the show. We call it Broomhead's Best. This week, it's the Arizona Cardinals. Now, University of Arizona Wildcats getting ready for the college football season. Torrential rains in Tucson washed out the practice facilities for the Arizona Wildcats.
So up stepped the Arizona Cardinals, preparing for their own season, but provided a practice facility for the Wildcats to practice on. Not only that, they lined it for college rules, and they put Arizona in both end zones. Congratulations to the Cardinals reaching out to the college guys. That was terrific. So that's this week's Broomheads Best. Now we switch it to what's burning up the internet. It's hashtag this. We're calling this one hashtag Adele Tears. Stop it. Adele canceled she postponed her second concert in Phoenix. You would have thought somebody assassinated the president. People were crying outside of the arena. One woman was bawling, said it was her daughter's lifelong dream. Get over it. November 21st, she's going to be back. If that's the worst thing that's ever happened to you, you've got a great life. We'll be back to close it out in just a minute. I want to thank Gordon James for joining us. What a treasure he is to have here in Arizona. A lot to do with American history recently and American politics. So it was great to get some insight from him. Next week, Lori Roberts, my favorite writer over at AC Central, joins me to talk about some of the things that are going on in Arizona politics. She's got a great sense of humor. We don't always agree, but I do like Lori Roberts a whole lot. So she's going to join the show next week. It should be a great interview. I want to thank you again for joining us. Remind you to find us on social media wherever you can. Have a great week. God bless.
Get more of Mike Broomhead on Facebook, Twitter, and of course weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on News Talk 550 KFYI.